Welcome to Talking Heads and the world of Poh Ling Yeow. You know her as someone who loves food and cooking. But this is actually an unlikely path for a shy Chinese Malay Mormon called Sharon. Poh, welcome to Talking Heads.
Thank you very much for having me, Peter.
Now, in a slightly different life, it is a slightly different life. I would have introduced you as Sharon,
Yes.
makeup artist to the stars in New York.
Yeah, perhaps. That was my fantasy anyway.
Well, you started down that road.
Yes.
What grabbed you about makeup?
I don't know. I think it's definitely related to the fact that when I grew up, I always had this chip on my shoulder about looking not the way I wanted.
Sorry.
Yeah, I couldn't really do much about that. I don't know. In some weird way, perhaps it was cathartic of me to be able to do this thing where I could change someone's face, and something about that sort of appealed to me.
If anything, food,
Yes.
association with food is the least likely.
Yeah, in a way, but, it was always there. Recently, I only just sort of realised that my Year 12 project was on food in art and art in food.
Well, it's very kind of Chinese cultural tradition, isn't it? That
Very much so, very much so.
people live to eat.
Yeah, completely. I mean, like, after you finish breakfast, you talk about what you're going to have for lunch, and then at lunch you talk about what you're going to have for dinner.
Oh, is that what happens?
And it's actually a huge part of not just eating, but, it's a huge part of what we do for recreation, really. Shop and eat. Yeah.
Now, life for you has been something, there's an issue there about fitting in. To be brief, you didn't really feel like you fitted in as a young kid in Malaysia.
Yeah.
You joined the Church of Jesus Christ of the Latter-day Saints, the Mormons, and struggled to fit into that.
Yeah.
You struggled to fit into sort of commercial art.
Yeah.
You do fit into cooking, but life's been a lot about this sort of finding the path.
Yeah. And I mean, I do acknowledge that a lot of it is, obviously it's an issue with myself. And I did struggle with shyness, so I think that was a little bit of a problem with friends, and I got brought up in quite a strict home. Yeah.
Is it right to say you felt pressure to be the good Chinese girl?
Yes, I did. But I was. I think a lot of people would describe me as having quite a sort of bubbly, sort of effervescent sort of personality. But I've certainly not always been like this. I think until very recently, I've felt fairly uncomfortable in my own skin, and very much so when I was younger. I'm 5th generation Chinese Malaysian, and I'd have to say that most of my cultural influence would definitely come from the women in my family. I was born in Malaysia and lived there till the age of 9, and the strange thing is that I always felt out of place. I always had this weird, strange feeling that I wasn't quite where I was meant to be. And when my parents announced to my brother and I, hey, we're moving to Australia, I remember this cloud just lifting from me. It was so vivid, and thinking, my life is going to finally make sense. As soon as we landed in Australia, I just remember thinking, I love everything. I love the street signs. I love these weird eucalyptus trees, the magpies. I love everything about this country. I didn't want to be Chinese when I was younger, I have to say. I remember the first day at school, I opened my lunchbox, and already the smell of it was a bit of a warning. Braised chicken giblets in star anise and soy, one of my favourite dishes. That lunchbox got snapped shut very promptly. Oh, this is so not a sandwich. And I didn't eat anything for lunch. I just remember thinking, yuck, I want to be blonde with freckles.
So, Poh, do you still do a line in chicken giblets with star anise?
Had it for ages, actually. Yeah, my dear auntie, she's lived with us since I was a child. Yeah, she thought, poor girl, first day at school, give her everything that she loves.
Give her some comfort food.
Yeah, give her some comfort food.
Let's take you back to Malaysia. You're growing up. You're there till you're 9, so it's quite a bit of the journey. In Kuala Lumpur.
Yes.
What was life like for you there?
I really, really struggled through all through school till I came to Australia. I literally just, it was just this confused haze every single day. And I just remember my routine was get there, cry my eyes out, and then like at recess till recess time, because that was like a little break for me.
You could stop crying at recess.
Yeah, I could stop crying at recess time. And then I'd take
Must
out
have been a great student to have in the class.
I know. And then I'd take out my hanky, and I'd always have this like really sort of self-indulgent moment where I'd go, oh, look, I'm so sad. Look how wet my hanky is. I'd do it every single day. And then I'd struggle all through to the end of class that day. And then my mum, my auntie, would actually have to come the next morning to copy down the homework that was on the blackboard from the day before. And my mum would actually do my homework for me.
What motivated your parents then to take the big step of coming to Australia?
Well, the main reason was to give my brother and I a good education. It's quite hard to get into universities in Malaysia.
It's investing a lot in the kids.
It is.
Expectations.
Yeah.
What was that like for you?
Well, I guess I was very shy. So even when, like I had to put up my hand in class or whatever, I would just find that quite difficult. And then early on in high school I actually saw it was such a problem that I decided to enrol in some drama classes, and that's what actually started to, help me a little bit with my confidence problem.
At home, how big is food? How big a deal is food as you grow up?
Oh, huge. Especially with my auntie. She cooks pretty much 24/7.
Must come around sometime.
Yeah.
There seems to be something or other about, there's a relationship between food and love, isn't there?
Completely. I mean, I didn't grow up in a house that was, overly affectionate. So food definitely plays that role. It's got that sort of currency as affection and love. When I was 16, my family joined the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, also known as Mormonism. At the time, that environment really appealed to me. So an environment that sort of was very clean cut. I felt really safe. But then I did start to feel like a bit trapped. I'd never had a boyfriend. So I thought, I think I have to actually remove myself from this situation entirely. I went overseas with my best friend. Most of it was spent in Utah because she was Mormon as well. And we thought it'd be a good way to be able to do fun things and go date and all that kind of stuff in an environment that was in line with our values. A real turning point in my travels was when I went to Canada, and I suddenly realised there was this whole big world out there. The first person who took me under their wing was a transvestite named Arnie. And little things like this suddenly just blew my little Mormon world to pieces. I suddenly realised I can't live with this set of values, this sort of doctrine anymore. When I came back to Australia, I managed to attract this friend at church, Matthew, and we fell in love, we got married, and together we helped each other leave the church. I could not believe how light I felt as soon as I'd made that decision. Just felt like my whole life had been lived under this cloud of guilt. And I think from there on is where I started to sort of understand how I could finally be comfortable in my own skin.
When you think back on it, what was it that drew you, and your mother initially, wasn't it, to the Mormon church?
For me, having been sort of like a bit of a nerd at school, it really appealed to me because I thought I don't feel the threat of all those things that might scare a teenager about being out, socialising. Like there wasn't the peer pressure to, with drinking and sex and all that kind of stuff. So I really liked the idea of that.
Safe environment.
Yeah, safe environment.
Let's go on that trip with you to Utah. Seat of the Mormon Church, Salt Lake City.
Yeah.
There you are. You meet a boyfriend.
Oh, yes. He is a Mormon, but a bad one.
A bad Mormon?
Yes. When I first met him, he was fully clad in leather. He was riding a Harley. And then I later found out that he was pierced to buggery. So I was just a magnet for all things that were, wrong for me, apparently. So, yeah, it was
This must have been scary on the one hand, but sort of liberating on the other, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. I just couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't do it anymore because after I travelled and delved into a little bit of, started going to university, I realised that so many things, well, most things in life are grey.
You come back to Australia and you meet Matt.
Yes.
Tell us about why that was significant in the way you sort of fitted into Mormonism.
Well, we sort of chose getting married to sort of break the news to the folks, which was quite traumatic because...
You chose when you decided to get married?
Yeah, because in the Mormon church you get married in a temple, and we had to explain to our parents that we weren't going to go to the temple because we were actually sort of going the other way. So, yeah, we had to sort of break that news to our parents around the wedding, the preparations for the wedding. So that was pretty heavy going, especially for my family.
When you leave school and you're sort of transacting all these things around Mormonism, you don't quite get to art, but you get to graphic design.
Yeah. I wasn't quite ready to make that leap into the abyss, which is what visual art is. So I thought, well, if I sort of apply it on a commercial, in commercial art, I might have a little bit more a better hit rate in terms of getting a job. I think I'm allowed to say this as an Asian. I think Asian parents tend to be very ambitious for their children.
Well, they give up a lot to come too.
They give so much, up for the kids to come. So you really don't want to hear your child say they want to be an artist after all that. But,
What, an artist?
Yeah, I know. Strangely, I think because my dad's got a bit of, he's quite creative. They both have been very supportive to me all through uni and, my interest in art. So that's been really great. I studied graphic designing, specialising in illustration. I always had this feeling that I needed more creative autonomy over what I did. So I was pretty determined to carve a creative career that wasn't in a sort of corporate environment and that wasn't in an office. When I started painting, I knew that this was going to be a journey of finding myself, as sort of cheesy and cliche as it seems. I realised that all my work had to be about me being a Chinese Australian. So that was a really big moment for me. That's when the girl emerged. And I don't know where she came from. She was in my first exhibition. And her face, I suppose, an amalgamation of all these things that I hated about myself as a child. So she's got an even bigger head and it's like, yeah, okay, I accept that I've got a big head. So it's just like this exaggeration of everything that I hated about myself. It is a very narcissistic process, I think, painting, and I admit that. Well, Zed's sort of the love of my life, really. I identify with him also because he's got black hair, short legs and a big head, which I also have. I don't know why. He eternally inspires me because I just find him so comical to look at, just from looking at the sheer size of his head. He's a third head.
I've been waiting for the moment to bring up Zed, and I think this is it, don't you?
Yeah.
Zed's just made a big appearance.
Yeah.
Zed represents continuity.
He does. I bought him with Matt, and Matt very generously allowed me to have him when we broke up. And he's just been there for me, through some really sort of harrowing emotional periods in my life. And he's just always, he just makes me smile all day long. Like, I just have to look at him and he's just gorgeous. He's just a little ray of sunshine in my life.